Round one of the NFL draft is done, and we are here reacting to it, to all 10 fantasy relevant players that were drafted. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Help us get to 1,300 subscribers, which is amazing. And also join us live tonight. We're going to go live again Friday after the second and third round, probably in the middle of the third round or so. We'll go live reacting to it, rookie drafts, all of that fun stuff. So join us. We had over 40 people last night. Hopefully we can get even more tonight. And I had to sleep on it before making this video. I had to sleep on it and my feelings about this round one. And my initial reaction was that it wasn't great for fantasy football, for dynasty football, at least year one. And I know we call ourselves dynasty players and we say, hey, you know, we are dynasty players. We don't look just at 2025. We look at 2-3 years in the future. And while that's partly true, we do have to be honest with ourselves and say that's not 100% true. Dynasty has played a lot like redraft than it was 4 or 5 years ago. A lot more like redraft than it was 4 or 5 years ago. And we react, week to week, and we move players up and down based on how they were over this, how they played in September of their rookie year. You know, Bryce Young is a perfect example of like everyone was out on Bryce Young after year one. So year one does matter. And so you're gonna hear a lot of this in my analysis here about year one and what to expect. But Cam Ward was the first overall pick. We all expected this. There's not really much to say here. I think Cam Ward, now that he's officially the number one pick, he'll probably move up rankings just a little bit. And I kind of put him in that, 15 to 17 range of quarterbacks, the McCarthy's, Purdy's, Penix, even guys like Lawrence and Mayfield. You can argue one over the other. They're all kind of in that giant tier of guys. Again, don't want to spend too much time on this because we all expected this. I think Cam Ward shouldn't fall past the 103 in a super flex draft, personally. And he could go as high as the 102, in my opinion, as where we stand right now. Travis Hunter, second overall pick, which is not a surprise. However, what is a surprise is Jacksonville, the landing spot. He even said it himself, like, I think the only interview he had with Jacksonville was at the Combine. So I guess this was in Jacksonville's plans all along. They traded up, and they went and got him. They traded up, and they went and got their guy. And I respect it from Jacksonville. Now, am I as excited for Travis Hunter for fantasy football, for dynasty football, as I was when I thought he was going to the Browns? I'm actually not. I'm not as excited, and I'll tell you why. One is Jacksonville traded up a lot to go and get him. They moved up the 3 spots, and they traded quite a lot to go out and get him. They traded their second-round pick, which was very high in 2025, and they traded their 2026 first-round pick. And also, some other later-round swaps and stuff like that. So Jacksonville traded a pretty decent amount to go up and get, in my opinion, that I don't think they would do that if they viewed Travis Hunter as like he's a wide receiver 80, 90% of the time and a defensive player 10, 15% of the time. To me, they made this move because they're thinking, we just got 2 players in one. We need a cornerback, we need a wide receiver help, but we just got both. And that's great for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it's probably good for Trevor Lawrence. That being said, I'm not as excited, and people are mixed about this. Some people are saying Travis Hunter should be the 102, 103 in this rookie class, and I'm not going to argue against that necessarily. I am hesitant, though, because I think them trading up kind of signals that they're going to use him both ways significantly, not just like, 10% on defense. They're going to use him both ways significantly. I think there's a very good chance that brings down his offensive snaps, which is going to make him a little bit less reliable. Guys that play less than 70% of snaps are very hard to rely on for fantasy football. Wide receivers and tight ends, that is. And also, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, it increases the injury risk. The injury risk is significantly increased if he's playing a lot more snaps than he would if he was just an offensive or defensive player. I think on average, teams run about 60-ish snaps a game or so, 60 to 65. Let's just say he's playing 80, 90 snaps a game for 17 weeks. That increases his injury risk significantly. So I'm not as excited. And also, the last thing I'll say about this is that if he were to go to the Browns, even if he was on the field only 70, I think he was going to play two ways no matter what team he went to. Let me just make that clear. But if he went to the Browns, and even if he only played 70, 75% on offense, there was a good chance he was still the best wide receiver on that team. I don't think that's the case in Jacksonville now. I mean, because BTJ's there. So he has more of a target competition in terms of an alpha wide receiver. Maybe there's more depth in Cleveland, but overall, I really don't know what to do with Travis Hunter. Anyone that tells you this is how it's going to play out has no idea. No one knows. No one knows. Even though we think we know, no one knows. So you let me know in the comments, where are you taking Travis Hunter in a super flex tight end premium or even non-tight end premium draft? I'm curious. I'm very, very curious because I saw some people last night in a live stream saying, he should be 102, 103. So Ashton Jeanty, great. We love it. We expected Raiders, Bears. Those were like the two teams I think we were all kind of locked in on. Honestly, we were probably happy with wherever he went, whether it's New England, Jacksonville, maybe not places like the Jets or Carolina, but New Orleans. He went to the Raiders. It's great. It's probably better than the Bears in terms of pure volume. Maybe the scheme or the offense isn't quite as good. Who knows? I think the Raiders could be sneaky good this year. But in terms of volume, I mean, it's Ashton Jeanty and no one else. Just look at how Pete Carroll was using Marshawn Lynch there when their teams were Super Bowl contenders year in and year out. So now, who does Ashton Jeanty have to compete against? Raheem Mostert, Sincere McCormick, and Zamir White. So great for Ashton Jeanty. Don't want to spend too much time on this. He's the clear-cut 101. If anyone was doubting, had a little bit of doubt about him being the 101 in Superflex, whatever format, it's gone. He's the clear 101. Tet McMillan to the Panthers. And this is another one where we see, I'd probably say the majority of people that were in the live stream last night said this was a good spot for Tet McMillan. And I'm not necessarily, again, disagreeing with that. I will say this, though. Obviously, it's a good spot in the sense of, like, he could be the clear-cut number one wide receiver, right? He could be absolutely the clear-cut number one wide receiver. And he should be, considering he was the 8th overall pick, a lot of people's number one wide receiver in this draft class. And he's going to a team where it feels like they have a bunch of 2s and 3s on the team, right? That's what it feels like. That being said, his dynasty value is so tied to Bryce Young. It's so tied to Bryce Young over the next couple of years, and whether or not Bryce Young can really take that next step as a passer, as a quarterback in general. And his value is tied to Bryce Young, which scares me just a little bit. Now, listen, I like Bryce Young. I was telling people to buy low on him after year one, and people were calling me crazy. You're like, no, he sucks. He's terrible. People were offering me 3rd-round picks for him, saying no one wants him. And look at him now, right? Like he's improved, right? But it was a small sample size because he wasn't good in the beginning of the season. He got benched, and then when he came back from the benching, then he looked good, but smaller sample size. Adam Thielen was pretty good when Adam Thielen came back from the injury from weeks 12 to 18 last year. Adam Thielen was the wide receiver 21 in points per game and wide receiver 13 in overall points. So he did have a good stretch, which points to, like, hey, Bryce Young can support a fantasy relevant wide receiver. It's just what's going to happen. Again, I talk about year one, and year one with these guys who are already a little bit polarizing, right? Tet McMillan, some people liked him, some people didn't like him. Some people are saying he's not as good. Steve Smith saying this stuff about him. What's going to happen if Tet McMillan comes out in 2025 and he's just okay? He's not good. He's not great. He's like wide receiver 40 in total points or something. Like he's a wide receiver 3 at best, kind of. Like, what's going to happen? And Bryce Young looks good, but he looks closer to average than really good, right? What's going to happen with Tet McMillan's value? It's going to start going down because A, people are already a lot of people are already down on Tet McMillan. B, people just don't like the Panthers overall. I mean, that's why Xavier Legette didn't go till like middle of round 2 last year, even though he was a 1st-round pick. Is because people just didn't like the Panthers and Bryce Young. So if we don't see that improvement from Bryce Young and Tet McMillan comes out and he's just kind of, average at best, his value is going to fall. It just is after year one. It really is. And so that's my only concern. That being said, I think Tet McMillan's a good player. I think he obviously has a really good chance of being the clear-cut number 1 target for that team. And I hope he is. I really hope he is. I'm just telling people how I feel like this could go when we're talking about Tet McMillan in January 2026 after his rookie year. So, and that being said, he still does have some competition there. I mean, Adam Thielen is still there. I know Adam Thielen is old, but Bryce Young seems to like him. He'll be 35, which is crazy. Xavier Legette is a former first-round pick with a lot of talent who flashed at times last year. Jalen Coker, a lot of people kind of like Jalen Coker and what he did as an undrafted guy. So just some food for thought there. Colston Loveland to the Bears was a little bit shocking. I get it because, a lot of the tackles went off the board, which I think is probably, Jeanty and a lot of the tackles were gone. So I think the Bears just kind of potentially went like best player available in their opinion. Again, like, is this a good landing spot? I don't think it's terrible. I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation of Tyler Warren versus Loveland now, because I think for a lot of people is clear-cut Tyler Warren. And now there's going to be a lot of people that lean towards the Loveland side. I probably still lean Tyler Warren just because I like him more as a player. But this landing spot's good. It's not great. Only because I do think this offense is going to be much improved. And it's all dependent on Caleb Williams. And I believe in Caleb Williams. And I believe this offense is going to get on track. I don't think Ben Johnson would have taken this job if he didn't believe in Caleb Williams, because why would you go to the NFC North where you have, Vikings, Lions, Packers, like, you know what I mean? So, so Loveland here, the only issue, I guess, with Loveland year one is like, how is he going to be used? You got guys like Roma Dunze and DJ Moore there. So there's a very good chance that Loveland over the next couple of years is at best the third target for this team. That being said, there's a lower threshold that tight ends need to get to be fantasy relevant. So I still think it's possible, even if he has kind of two alpha wide receivers on the team that are out targeting him, that he could still be very good. He could do it through touchdowns, or he could just do it through catches and yards, right? Like, again, if he gets to 700, 750, 800 yards, 5 to 7 touchdowns and however many catches comes with that, he's going to be good for fantasy. Now, will he be great? It's a little bit harder to see that, but that being said, like, we still haven't seen, okay, what is Roma Dunze for sure? I think DJ Moore is a good player. So I don't hate this landing spot. It was a little bit unexpected, I would say. But, obviously we want to see players go to teams where it's like, okay, I can see this guy being potentially the number one target, number two target on the team. And it's going to be tough. It's possible for Loveland, but it's going to be tough with guys like a Dunze and DJ Moore there, in my opinion. Tyler Warren was the next pick. He went to the Colts. This is the pick a lot of people were dreading because we saw it mocked over and over and over again, right? We saw them the Colts mocked Tyler Warren. It was like a lock, kind of. And so people were dreading it because of the landing spot. I'll just say this, I mentioned about Brock Bowers, and how did we feel about Brock Bowers when he was drafted to the Raiders? They had Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell as their quarterback. They had Michael Mayer there, which obviously meant nothing. Devontae Adams was still there, by the way, when we were doing our rookie drafts. Devontae Adams was still there when we were doing our fantasy redraft stuff. Devontae Adams was still there. Jacoby Myers was there. So we didn't love the landing spot, and he became the tight end 1 or 2. That being said, Raiders threw the ball a lot last year. I think they were like top 5 in pass attempts or something, which is kind of crazy to think about. And I don't see the Colts really doing that. And Anthony Richardson does have to prove he can throw the ball. He can hit the broadside of a barn. Like, he has to prove that. And then people are saying, oh, but Daniel Jones. And I think people are like a little bit delusional when they're talking about Daniel Jones is the backup. Like, Daniel Jones is not very good as a passer. Like, he hasn't been. So I don't know if we should be super excited for Daniel Jones to come in and take over for Anthony Richardson. That being said, again, tight ends have a lower threshold. I think there's less competition for Warren than on the Bears, right? I mean, I think Warren could theoretically be the number one target on this team if he's legit. Like, he could be Brock Bowers. Like, I'm not saying he could be Brock Bowers level, but he could be the number one guy. Even though they have some good wide receivers there, I don't think they have great wide receivers there in Pittman and Downs and Alec Pierce and Adonai Mitchell. I think they are all good wide receivers. I don't think any of them are great. And so if Warren is a great tight end, he could just be the number one target and a a safe, easy target for Anthony Richardson over the middle of the field. And I just love Warren and what he does after the catch as well. So I think he can kind of create a lot of yards on his own, which I think is really important when you're playing with a quarterback that's maybe not as good of a passer as you would hope. Is can you create on your own? So I still personally lean Warren over Loveland. I'm not going to argue against anyone that wants to take Loveland over Warren, but I'm going to stick with what I believe in terms of the prospects here, and I'm going to stick with Tyler Warren. Emeka Egbuka to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was unexpected, I would say. This was pretty unexpected, but then you start thinking about it from the Buccaneers' point of view, and it kind of makes sense, right? Like, you need to keep replenishing. Teams don't draft. I keep telling people this. Teams don't draft for what they need in 2025. Teams draft for what they're going to need in 2025, 6, 7, 8, like 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And so you start looking at the Buccaneers, and you got Mike Evans, who's going to be 32 before the season starts. You have Chris Godwin, who's 29 years old and coming off a significant ankle injury. Jalen McMillan's there, but we got to be completely honest. Like, Jalen McMillan, although he flashed as a third-round rookie, it was very touchdown dependent, and we see stretches from guys all the time. If you've been watching football from any amount of time, like you see 5-6 game stretches from guys, and then they just disappear. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Jalen McMillan, but it's going to affect Emeka Egbuka year one. It just is. If Evans is healthy, if Godwin's healthy, if McMillan takes that next step, Egbuka year one is not going to do a whole lot, in my opinion. That being said, a lot of injuries can happen and things like that. One thing I will say is I go back to the JSN to Seattle draft a couple of years ago, and JSN got pushed down the board a little bit, right? The push down, I think he fell probably for some people, at least a couple of picks in rookie drafts. He did in a lot of my drafts, and I went up and acquired him. And the reason why he did was because, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, right? What a terrible landing spot. Less than 2 years later, both those guys are not even on the team anymore. The guys that we were worried about for JSN are not even on the team anymore, and JSN was a top 10 wide receiver last year. That's how fast the NFL can change. Think about Michael Penix. He's not going to play until he's 27 years old, and he's not going to play until 2027. Kirk Cousins, he played year one, and now he's the starting quarterback for the Falcons. Things change way too much in the NFL, way too fast. And so anyone trying to say, use this against Egbuka, they have no idea what this Buccaneers team is going to look like in 2026. It could be the Emeka Egbuka and Jalen McMillan show. So, and for that reason, I think Jalen McMillan might be a sneaky. If he falls down a lot, he might be a sneaky buy low. Omarion Hampton to the Chargers. Interesting. Chargers get their running back. I think we all, we love Chargers running backs, right? No matter who it is, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Najee Harris. Omarion Hampton is a Charger. And I'm fine with it. As a Chargers fan, I'm fine with it. Now, what I will say is, I don't think Najee Harris is going anywhere year one. Like, I think Najee Harris is he's going to kind of be a thorn in the side of Omarion Hampton a little bit year one. I don't think this team's going to go away from Najee Harris. I think this team likes Najee Harris. They like that he never gets hurt, that he never fumbles. And Harbaugh was trying to recruit him to Michigan. By the way, he was also trying to recruit Omarion Hampton to Michigan as well. So he likes these guys. I think they love what they have here. And I could definitely see a type of season where they're both healthy, where they both are getting 200 plus touches. Carries a game, 200 plus carries a season. 200 in a game is crazy. They ran the ball about 27 times per game last year. I think they want to do that a little bit more. I think they want to get to 30 at least, and I could see like 15 and 15 type of thing. I could see the Chargers running the ball for over 500 times this season, and you go back and look, and it's like, Omarion Hampton had 230, and Najee Harris had 215 or something like that. I do think Omarion Hampton's a better running back. And I do think in 2026 and beyond, it's his backfield. I just don't think Najee Harris is going to. We see this all the time. Think about the Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon situation where it's like, man, we all know Javonte Williams is a better running back than Melvin Gordon, but teams just liked what the Broncos just liked what Melvin Gordon did. He did the dirty things. He got the hard yards. He didn't fumble. He did everything right, and that got him to basically have a 50-50 split. Why is Najee Harris on the field when Jaylen Warren looks way more explosive? It's because Najee Harris, they can trust him. And so for year one, I would be, if Najee Harris is healthy all year, I would be surprised if Omarion Hampton's much better than like a low-end RB2. They both can be like low-end RB2s and especially if they run the ball a lot. I'd be a little bit surprised. Obviously, Hampton's a better pass catcher in my opinion as well. But I don't think, no matter what happens here, I don't really think Hampton's going to lose value unless he like gets completely benched, right? And like it's Najee and then Hampton has like 120 carries or something. I don't see that happening. And I think Hampton's going to hold value, even if he's not really a difference maker year one, because people are going to, the dynasty managers are smart. They're going to see the future and they're going to say, hey, 2026, this is Hampton's backfield. So I don't mind it. I think it kills expectations for his ceiling year one, but beyond that, I think Hampton can be a really damn good player. Matthew Golden to your Green Bay Packers. And if you guys have been watching my videos, you know that I have been a Matthew Golden fan basically since I heard that he declared and started to scout him in late January. This was before he ran a 14. I said, this guy's awesome. I think I had him as my wide receiver 3 very early on before a lot of people were even in the top 5 for him. And him going to the Packers, I have mixed emotions about it. I think about stories and narratives that people are going to present about these players, right? What's the narrative for Omarion Hampton? Oh, he's the starting running back for the Chargers in 2026 and beyond. A good narrative. What's going to be the narrative for Matthew Golden if he is not really good year one? It's going to be Packers wide receivers. This is what they do, right? This is what Packers wide receivers do. You can't trust any of them. They're inconsistent. There's too many of them. The Packers run the ball too much as well, right? Like what if Golden comes out and he has a 60 catch, 850 yard, 5 touchdown year, right? Playing all year. But then Jaden Reed has similar numbers and Romeo Doubs does what he's been doing and Dontavian Wicks still puts up 400 and you just get it spread out through all these targets again. What's going to be the narrative is Packers wide receiver and no one's going to want to trade for them. Go try and trade Jaden Reed, who, for the first couple of years has actually been pretty good. Over 900 scrimmage yards in 22 as a rookie and 10 touchdowns, over 1,000 scrimmage yards last year, and 7 touchdowns for Jaden Reed. He's been pretty good. The issue is he hasn't been elite because they don't have high volume to anyone because they spread the ball around, right? You have Tucker Kraft there, and Tucker Kraft, he put up over 700 yards. You have Romeo Doubs there, who he put up over 600 yards in 13 games. You had Christian Watson there, but he's going to probably miss some time. Dontavian Wicks put up over 400 yards and 40 catches. That matters. Those things matter. So Golden's going to have to overcome that. He's going to have either a big catch or big touchdown type of production, and he's going to have to be more than just like a boom bust wide receiver 3 that these Packers receivers have been over the last couple of years. He's just going to, or else we're just going to go back and look at Packers wide receiver, and it's going to be impossible to trade him away. Again, go and try to trade Jaden Reed. No one wants him, even before the Golden draft pick. No one wants Jaden Reed, even though he's been productive, because it's the Packers, right? And that's the narrative here. So I think about the narrative year one, and Golden's going to have to overcome that. And I think he could. And I think he could just be the best wide receiver on the team. That being said, I don't think Jaden Reed's going away. Romeo Doubs, the team likes him. Dontavian Wicks is going to play his role. Maybe Christian Watson comes back. So just food for thought there for Matthew Golden. And then Jaxson Dart to the Giants. Nice. Like, I think this is a pretty nice pick. And I think we were a little surprised that Shedeur Sanders didn't go first round, but we did get Dart to go first round. I've never been the biggest Dart fan. I just don't know how to evaluate him, if I'm being completely honest. I just don't know how to evaluate him. So I think this is good, but it's also, if the Giants are winning games, which they desperately need to win games, right? They can't afford Daboll and the GM. They cannot afford to put Jaxson Dart out week 1 and say, all right, we're going to let this rookie grow as we go 4-13 because they're going to get fired. They need to win games, and they're probably going to lean to one of the veterans, Russell Wilson or Jameis. And if they're winning games, they're not going to move off of them. So there's a good chance that Dart doesn't even play this year. If it plays very little, maybe a couple games at the end of the year, if the Giants kind of put things together a little bit. So that's all I'll say about Dart. I'm excited for round 2 and 3. I think we're going to get a lot of fantasy relevant guys, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Dylan Sampson, probably Shedeur Sanders is going to go. Some wide receivers are going to go, like Luther Burden, some more tight ends. So join us tonight after, probably around 10:30, 11 Eastern time, going over the second and third round of the NFL draft and doing some more rookie drafts. So appreciate everyone. Catch you guys all tonight.